Hi guys, it's Carl here. Welcome to EMTP 7312, the second part of the POE's prep. Just to give you some feedback, you should by now, when you're listening to this recording, you should have your marks for the first one. If not, they're probably just going to be released in the next day or so. Overall, I think everybody did quite well, some really brilliant ideas. But please do yourself a favor, go have a look at my feedback, both what I've written as well as the comments I've made in your projects. I don't recall offhand anything really worrying, and I don't recall offhand any really bad marks. But please go look at that. If you've got any concerns, as always, there's my email address. Please feel free to drop me an email and we can discuss it and we can take it further from there. So the part two, part one counted, I think it was 25%, part two counts 30%, and then part three is, I think, 35%, if I'm not mistaken. 10th of October due date, and that's why I'm making a recording, because of the public holiday. We've missed out on a session or so. And I'm concerned about when our next session is in relation to the due date of this. I'm also concerned because I believe I have an award ceremony then, so we might have to move that class or make a plan. But please, guys, don't wait until a day before the time to ask questions. Drop me an email anytime. I really don't mind answering your emails. Looking at your learning unit 3 and 4, the 2,000 to 2,500 words is tight. For what you are expected to do, it is tight. There's a reason why they do this, and that is that an important outcome of tertiary education is the fact that you are able to write concisely and be able to, those of you that have done the research modules would have learned this, you're able to write something in a way that's very straightforward, very simple, no highfalutin language. You must get your message across. At this NQF level, I would expect about 10 sources for an assignment such as this. You definitely need to go much wider than Neck, and Murray. You should consider Neck, and Murray the absolute basics. And yeah, consider and read wider in the field, etc. Okay, so what do you need to do? You basically need to continue working from the first assignment. You're still working with the same venture. You had a venture that you suggested in the first assignment. You're still running with that venture. We're still looking at that venture and saying, okay, how do we expand this venture? Where do we go with this venture from there? You will have your feedback from the assignment. As I said, there's nothing, I can't remember anything that really jumped out at me and said, oh no, somebody's on the wrong track. I may have given, and that's why it's important for you to have a look at your at the actual feedback I've given you. I may have said to you, watch out, this is too broad. You're not going to solve the whole world's problem. And if I haven't said it and you are looking at the whole world's problem, my apologies for not saying that in your specific one, but try to keep it local, solve. We're not going to solve any one of those 17 problems with one blue sky venture, but you could have a massive impact on that problem in your localized environment. And that's what I believe what you should be looking at. So limit it to a localized environment and solve that problem or address that problem in that region. Not that I've got anything against your ideas being something that could really address the problem. It's just, it's easier when you see what you've got to do in this assignment and the hoops that you're expected to jump through. It's going to be a heck of a lot easier if you only work in one geographical region. And it differs from project to project. I don't want to say one town, one city, one province, one country. It depends on your product, and you'll have to make the call according to the product that you have decided on. Okay, let's have a look at question 1. So you need to run an experiment to test the value of your blue sky venture using the scientific method. So the scientific method has got 6 steps in it. I've got them on the screen there for you. This is 7.4 in your textbook, if I remember correctly, offhand. So the first thing about the scientific method is you've got to go ask a lot of questions. Secondly, you've got to do background research. Background research, you're almost looking like a lit review, that type of idea that you've got to go do. And that's why the 10 sources are not difficult to get to. Now develop a hypothesis And your hypothesis then will be something like using solar electricity could solve the national electricity crisis, something in that line. Test the hypothesis by running experiments. So in your case, experiments are going to probably entail interviews, analyze the data, and assess the results. So you are doing a little research project on your specific product. I've broken this further down on the next slide. So let's look at that, because those 6 steps in the scientific method could sound a bit abstract. So let's see what you need to do, what the actual things are that you're going to do. Firstly, create a hypothesis. It's a must. Don't come with hypotheses that come in 3 parts and it's a sub-hypothesis, and so you've got one hypothesis, one simple, straightforward hypothesis on what can happen here. So you collect data. You actually have to go out and collect data. Less than 10 people, but not 3. Don't go over 10. Speak to family, speak to friends. Present your results in graphs or tables. In other words, make a graphical representation. I would obviously, because this is experimental method, I would tend to go quantitatively. So use something like a Likert scale. If you're not sure what a Likert scale is, go have a look at your research textbook. That'll explain it to you. Use something like a Likert scale, which is then easy to convert into graphs. If you want to email it to people, it's always easier to use an MS form or a Google form, because if you use a Google form, it puts it straight into a Excel spreadsheet for you. And you can then very easily draw tables and graphs from it. And if you don't know how to do those things, now's a very, very good time to figure them out. Those are handy skills to have in any industry. Once you've got the results, so now you've got data, now you need to interpret those results. You need to say, you need to answer the so what question. What does these results tell you? What does it tell you about your product? What does it tell you about the viability of the so you've got to interpret and then make some conclusions. Determine where do you go with your product from here. I have no qualms for you to say at that point, I think my product needs to scale down. I think I need to change my product to rather focus on X, Y, Z. If your results are showing you something like that, it's better just to say, yes, okay, I'm going to take the product in this direction. And then that's the last part. What are the next steps for your business based on the results? So you've got to come to a point where you say, where do I go with this business now that we know what we know? Because remember, up to this point, everything you've done was pie in the sky. You didn't have any real data to work on or any real information. It's an idea, and some of you, as I acknowledged earlier, had really good ideas. But you had an idea and you wrote a pie in the sky part 1 of the POE. Now we're starting to get a bit more realistic, saying go speak to a couple of people. Find out what people say about the problem, and let's see if this is actually going to go somewhere. And if it's not going to go somewhere, adjust it. That's the last part there. Okay, then you need to come into question. So remember, you need to present it in graphs or tables, assess what those graphs or tables tells us, interpret that, say something about what does this mean for your hypothesis, and then determine where you're going with this project. Question 2. Okay. How will you fund this? Where will the money come from to get this thing off the ground? And in essence, they're asking you, would you crowdfund or bootstrap it, right? So firstly, you need to give me the background. You need to say what crowdfunding and what bootstrapping is. And once again, very easy to find in Neck, and Murray, but go find other sources that correlate with Neck, and Murray. So you have Neck, and Murray says this source tells me this about bootstrapping, this source tells me that about bootstrapping, and this one tells me that about crowdfunding. So describe the difference between the two. And then determine what is the one that will work for you and why. Why would that be yours? And the choice that you make there, you need to align with theory. So use theory to back up your choice, Why did I make that choice? Because this is what, and when I talk about theory, I'm talking about what the textbook says, and not just Neck, and Murray. The sources that you've consulted, what are they saying? How much money would you need? How's it broken down? So now we need to start looking at, I won't call it a budget, but a breakdown of funds. I'm not expecting you for one moment to do a projected cash flow or to do anything like that. Simply, what are the funds that you're going to need? How much realistically? And now also think of what I was saying earlier about keeping it local and so on. How much realistically are you going to need to get this project up and running? And to what is that money going? And then the last consideration, this question, how long will it take to get the money or to get the product to the people's door? What is your timelines? How do these timelines work? And where are we going to go with this? Question 3 is your last question. This question asks you to look at what you did in the first assignment and look at what you did in the second one, part 1 and part 2, and do a bit of self-reflection. Do some introspection. Think about how this has changed you. Where have you realized, I don't really know much about this, or I need more information and more knowledge on that? So what were the limitations that you personally have in terms of knowledge, money, information, whatever? What problems or disadvantages did you experience in putting this together? So you might have, and I'm going to stick to the solar panel example. You might have said, okay, solar panels, it's an easy one, just going to write this thing and get away with it. And then started reading up and realized, but solar panels are a lot more complex because solar panels don't give you electricity. Solar panels simply feed into a regulator that then takes that and converts the electricity, or a regulator in inverter, takes that electricity and then converts it into usable electricity that can actually go into your house. And most people don't just pump that electricity in their house, they run it through a battery. Now suddenly it's not just the panels, it's the inverter and the batteries and the installation. Now this becomes a bit more complex. And I didn't really know all of this. And because you didn't know, how did this influence the way you said these things, the way you wrote them? Do you now, after the project, say, yes, if I knew a bit more about this stuff, I might have chosen something else? So how would you change this? And are there any ethical considerations that you need to think about and say, oof, yeah, I didn't really realize that this is going to place me in this position, ethically, this dilemma. So overall, where are we with this? You need to have a cover page with your name and details on it. I would suggest that on the cover page, don't do it in the cover. Do it in the intro. Sorry, just briefly mention what it is, what your product is, and what it does. Two lines, and then introduce this assignment. Okay. Then your body is question 1, 2, and 3, as discussed there. And guys, please, when I discuss these assignments in in these sessions, I'm not saying question 1.1 says this, question 1. I'm telling you what you're supposed to do. You must still go read the question, go read the detailed instructions that they give you there, because there's a whole bunch of other instructions that I speak to, but I don't explicitly tell you these. So please go read the instructions still. Come to a conclusion at the end of question 1, 2, and 3. Do your references, and if you really need to put appendices, put appendices. I don't really see a need for the appendices here. The only one you could possibly want to do, if you've not worked it into your question itself, is do an appendix of the questions that you asked the people that you collected the data from. So your questionnaire. The reason why I'm telling you to put it as an appendix doesn't count for your word count. 2,000 to 2,500 words are not many for all the hoops you've got to jump through. So if you put the questionnaire in there, there's another 300 words for you. But if you put it as an appendix at the back, then you don't have that problem that, that it's messing with your word count. So consider that as well. please make sure that the references that you use are academic. In other words, you need an academic, for a reference to be academic, there needs to be an author. Staff writer is not an author. Okay? So look for a website in general is not, unless it's like Stats South Africa or somebody like that, websites are as a rule not academic sources. You need proper academic peer-reviewed articles or textbooks to use as sources. I think there were one of two of you that I did take some marks off for referencing. I don't think it was more than 5%. I don't think anybody lost 10%. But guys, please be careful about that. At this stage of your studies, you shouldn't be losing marks for referencing. Your referencing should be spot on. And it's simple things. It's things like using, instead of saying Marais and the year, you're saying Carl Marais and the year. In some cases, people use page numbers. We only use page numbers when we directly quoting, and we should very, very seldomly directly quote. If you're still not sure about something like that, write your assignment and have a chat to the ladies in the information center at the online campus and ask them just to have a look at it for you. They're very helpful, and they're more than happy to help you. Okay, guys. And please, please, please send me emails, ask me questions. If you're not sure, rather ask and be sure. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. And as I say, because of the public holidays, and there's a function coming up that I haven't checked, but it's a work function, official function, which might mean that our next session also turns into a recording, which is not nice. If you want to see me and we have to make another date, I'm happy to make a different time and date to see you. But I know it will clash with other classes. That's why I'm saying, please, please, please send me an email. Okay, guys, that's all from Carl. Thank you very much. Drop me an email if you need any help, and good luck with the part 2 of your POE.